Donald Trump's approval ratings continue to rise as the left struggles to find its footing. So far, every attempt they've made to regain their credibility has backfired in the most hilarious ways possible. Right now, their favorite coping strategy is to insist that Trump's approval ratings are actually super low, and Republicans are horrified by what he's doing. This strategy has not worked out very well for them at all. Also, Donald Trump says that we should stop manufacturing pennies. This may sound extreme at first, even for Trump, but it's not as controversial as you might think, and if Trump gets his way, we could save millions of dollars. I'm Luke Garnett, and this is The Low Gray Show. Pinning down a politician's exact approval rating can be a pretty tricky business. The news anchors make it look easy, but trust me, it is not. There are dozens of polls you can find online, and they all survey different amounts of people, which means they can vary a lot. For example, in a previous episode of The Low Gray Show, I stated that, according to a recent survey, Donald Trump stands at 53% approval with Democrats. After doing a bit more research, I have found that poll is apparently a bit of an outlier. The approval rating for Trump among Democrats is more like around 10 or 20%, so I apologize for that. 53%. Where in the world does that number come from? See, it just goes to show, not all polls are created equal. But no matter where you go, you can definitely see a growing amount of Trump supporters. CNN, Fox News, ABC, MSNBC, for once, they're all saying the same thing. This was CNN.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Entire first term, just 11 days, Donald Trump had a net positive approval rating. Compare that to the second term, just so far, every single day of Trump's second term so far, he has been on the positive side of the ledger. 21 days, all 3 weeks. That's already 10 more days than he was in his entire first term.
Here are some of Trump's recent approval ratings from a variety of sources. RMG Research, 55% approval. AARP, 48%. Survey USA, 51%. CBS, 53%. Also from CBS, 55% of people describe Donald Trump as competent, and 70% of people say that he is keeping the promises he made during his campaign. Now again, no poll is perfect, but it looks like Trump is doing a good job. It looks like people support him. And that shouldn't be surprising, because the stuff Trump is choosing to focus on right now, this stuff is not that controversial. Take, for example, the executive order he recently signed banning biological men from participating in women's sports. The left really wants you to believe that this is a controversial issue. It's really not. According to the New York Times, a left-leaning newspaper, 79% of people say that biological males who identify as women should not be allowed to participate in women's sports. There were 2,128 people involved in the survey. The split between Democrats and Republicans was 48-48, with the rest being independent. 94% of Republicans said that transgender athletes should not compete with women, and so did 67% of Democrats. So again, it's not that controversial, but the radical left is still not happy. The best argument I've heard from them so far is that Trump is helping nobody with this. He is only hurting people because so few women have to deal with trans men stalking them in their locker rooms. Like, it is such a tiny problem. It doesn't need to be fixed. Here was Julie Snell from the LGBT Life Center.
I want to say that I'm shocked, but I'm not, unfortunately. And then to be told that you're no longer welcome in those spaces is really just incredibly sad. And for me, it's really interesting, though, because trans women are significantly underrepresented in sports, especially in elite sports.
Significantly underrepresented. Very interesting. Okay, for my defense, I call Riley Gaines to the stand.
And this is when I really set a goal to become a national champion. About halfway through my senior year, I was on pace to do so. I was ranked 3rd in the country. The swimmer who was ranked 1st was a swimmer I had never heard of before. And of course, this was the first time that I became aware of a swimmer named Leah Thomas. And so, unbeknownst to me at the time, this was a male, and I read this, and I was so shocked by this information. But truthfully, I felt almost a sense of relief, because I was able to look up who Will Thomas was. We saw this was a mediocre male swimmer at best, ranking the year prior 462nd nationally among the men at best. And that's why I say I felt a sense of relief, because I thought the NCAA would see this exactly how I saw it, exactly how anyone would see it. So about 3 weeks before our national championships in March of 2022, the NCAA announced that Leah Thomas would in fact be competing with the women, and there was nothing we could do about it. And so we go behind the awards podium, and the NCAA official looks at both Thomas and myself, and he says, "Great job. You guys tied. We don't really account for ties, so we're going to give this trophy to Leah." And so I was, of course, taken aback by this. Leah has to hold the trophy for photo purposes. You can pose with this 6th place trophy, but you'll have to give it back. You will go home empty-handed. Leah takes the trophy home. And that is when I realized I'd had enough.
Think that story is insane? Good. The majority of Americans agree with you. And still, the left insists that everyone hates Trump. According to the Daily Caller News Foundation, quote, "In recent weeks, reports have surfaced citing Trump voters who reportedly feel guilty and regretful over their decision to support the president in the 2024 election after witnessing his flurry of executive actions, ranging from immigration to drastically cutting bureaucracy. Despite this, Trump's approval rating remains above that of his first presidency, according to 4 recent polls. MSNBC host Rachel Maddow stated in a segment on Tuesday that some Republican voters allegedly feel as though Trump's actions are indefensible, citing a report from the Wall Street Journal that quoted self-identified Trump voters who reportedly regret their candidate choice. Maddow said that there are, quote, "Republicans who can't actually bear what Trump is doing." Now, I fact-checked this. There are some Republicans who are regretting their decision, and I have no idea why. If you voted for Trump and now you're regretting your decision, you did no research. You know nothing about Donald Trump. Because this is what he said he would do. He said he was going to completely revamp the government. He was going to restructure everything. And apparently you didn't get the message because now you're regretting your decision. You voted for this. Before you vote, research the candidate. If you vote for somebody and that somebody does what they said they would do and then you regret voting for them, you shouldn't have voted. So, some Trump voters regret their decision. I have no idea why. But again, most people are really happy with what Trump is doing right now. But I go to these liberal chat forums and look at the liberal news, and they say that, no, Trump's approval ratings are actually super low. So I try to tell these people, no, Trump's approval ratings are actually breaking records, according to CNN. If you want, I could cite my sources so you could see this for yourself. But all I hear back is, no, you're a fascist, you are a liar, you don't know what you're doing, all that is fake news. Now, you could link this behavior to the Democrats going through the 5 stages of grief. Stage 1 is denial. But I think this also tells us something important about how the liberal mind works. The people who are saying this kind of stuff, they don't care about the facts. They only care about their facts, because in their eyes, they are the best and only judge of what is true and not true. They are the main characters of the world, and if something isn't going their way, it can't be true. For example, Trump's approval ratings are going up, according to CNN. That's not what the left wants, so for them, it's not true. It doesn't matter if it's coming from a left-leaning newspaper because they don't choose which sources to trust and not trust purely based on their political affiliation. At least that's not the whole story. In fact, I would go so far as to say that the left doesn't even look for newspapers. They only look for headlines. The headline is all that matters to them. Because if they were to look any further than the headline, they might encounter an offensive fact. And they do not want to do that. So they only stick with the headline. CNN knows this, and CNN tries to take advantage of this. For example, take this CNN article that was published in July of 2024. The headline reads, "Trump falls to ground during rally in Pennsylvania." For a liberal, that is confirmation that Trump is not fit to be in office. However, if you were to actually click and read the article, you would see that it was about the assassination attempt. Trump fell down because he was shot in the ear. Just wild stuff. So, the typical thing a leftist looks for in a story is, does it give me good news? Or does it give me bad news that people will take out of context and then shower me with blessings and compliments because they feel bad for me? If so, then it's fact. But all that displays is denial. So the left is probably seeing reports of these high approval ratings. They're just deciding it's not true. Right now, the entire Democratic Party is built on denial. But if they want to have any chance of surviving, they're not going to be able to keep this up for much longer. According to the Washington Examiner, there is a Harvard poll that is, quote, reporting that the Democratic Party approval rating has hit a record low of 36%. Personally, I don't know how the Democratic Party is going to recover from this. Or if they're going to recover from this. I'll probably discuss it in a later episode, so stay tuned if you want to hear that. In other news, as previously mentioned, Donald Trump has announced that we should get rid of the penny, citing directly from his post on Truth Social, quote, "For far too long, the United States has minted pennies which literally cost us more than 2 cents. This is so wasteful. I have instructed my Secretary of the U.S. Treasury to stop producing new pennies. Let's rip the waste out of our great nation's budget, even if it's a penny at a time." Something interesting that CNN and Fox News have both pointed out is that Trump was actually understating the issue when he said it costs more than 2 cents to make a penny. According to a recent report from the US Mint, each penny costs about 3.69 cents to manufacture. That means it costs the government a whole dollar to buy 27 pennies. It costs the government less money to make a dollar bill than to make a penny. You'd think that surely even the Democrats would agree with Trump that this is ridiculous. And lo and behold, most Democrats do agree. For example, here is a tweet from Democrat Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada. Quote, "I'm not afraid to embrace a good idea when it comes from the other side of the aisle, and I agree with President Trump on this. Eliminating the penny is a common sense move that will save taxpayer dollars." Colorado Governor Jared Polis, another Democrat, has also come out in support of this move, saying that this will not only save money, but since we will be using less copper and zinc, it will also be better for the environment. Unfortunately, most of the opinion polls I found online were either super old or they were conducted by people who clearly wanted the applicants to agree with them on abolishing the penny, so it was biased. But from what I was able to find, this might be Trump's least controversial move so far, especially judging by the reactions from the liberal news outlets. I've come through articles from CNN, USA Today, New York Times. They've been shockingly nonpartisan. They've been saying things like, this could really hurt the economy, especially for the lower class. Or not, it could also save us money. It's definitely an idea worth exploring. There have been a few people complaining about this idea, but not a whole lot. But just because Democrats and Republicans both think it's a good idea doesn't mean it's a good idea. So here are the concerns that people have about Trump's proposal. The main argument is that ditching the penny would require us to produce more nickels to compensate. And if you thought the pennies were a ripoff, wait till you hear the numbers on nickels. It costs almost 14 cents to produce and distribute a single nickel. Also, something I just noticed about all these prices for nickels and dimes and pennies and all that, they all went up dramatically during Joe Biden's presidency. In 2020, it cost about 7 cents to make a nickel. Now it's almost 14. Oh wait, it says data not adjusted for inflation. Well, still, just something to think about. So anyway, worrying about increased nickel production? A very valid concern. Let's fact check it. Nickels cost more to mint than pennies, but there are also a lot less of them, so the government loses more money making pennies than it does nickels. If the penny is eliminated, we'll probably have to make a lot more nickels to compensate, which could be pricey, but when Canada phased out their 1-cent coin in 2013, their economy fared pretty well, even though they had to start making more nickels. Other countries have also gotten rid of their 1-cent coins, and their economies have suffered virtually no negative side effects. And as a little bit of bonus trivia, it only cost about 1.6 cents to make a Canadian penny, much less than what it costs for us. Now, of course, America isn't Canada, citation needed, but I say, if other countries are able to get rid of their pennies, I think we can too. Now, just to be clear, at the time of this recording, we are still making pennies. Trump hasn't signed an executive order or anything, but it looks like if he does do it, there will be, for once, no protests in the streets. And that's something I'm looking forward to. There's a lot more on this subject that I could touch on, but I've already been working on this episode for about 2 weeks. So if you're still interested in learning about the penny and nickel debate, I highly recommend you go do some research for yourself. It is quite an adventure. The point is, even if most people, Democrats and Republicans, are in favor of ditching the penny, the left as a whole just cannot let go of its hatred for Donald Trump. He's simply done too much good for the country for the left to be able to forgive him. Now, Trump hasn't done a perfect job. I think he's made some really dumb mistakes, but it's definitely better than what we would have gotten otherwise. And the left cannot accept it, so they are trying everything they can to make him look bad. A recent example, there's an anti-Trump podcast I like to listen to because it's so stupid. It's called Shrinking Trump, hosted by psychologists John Gardner and Harry Siegel, who, quote, conduct weekly sessions analyzing the psyche of Donald Trump, documenting his cognitive decline, and plumbing the depths of his malignant narcissism. You know how some people think Trump is Hitler? Well, nobody believes that more than these two. Anyway, this was them complaining about how Trump was trying to give out MAGA hats during a press conference. Apparently that's not allowed now. Here it is. It takes a while to get to the hat part, so just hang in there.
And people with severe narcissistic personality disorders are actually always on the verge of depression because they might slip into feeling that they're not great, right? He's very happy right now. You know, it's the honeymoon phase. He's getting his way with almost everything. He's letting Elon Musk, do his dirty work for him. He can always kick him out if he screws up. He's happy.
And, that comes up later in the meeting because, as I said, he seems cognitively confused when he's talking about, the canals, they built them. But then he perks up and gets very oriented and, as you would say, even charming, okay, when he's selling hats.
Here's them playing the clip.
Here, give me this here. Give me all of them. Look. Yes. See that?
He holds up a hat.
Trump was right about everything. It just came in. Somebody sent it. I said, this was sent in by a fan. I said, I think we should make some of them, right? But we were, pretty much. You want one?
I'll pass.
Are you allowed to take one? Because he'll consider it. I know him well. He's sort of a stiff.
I said you were right.
Brian, you're not a stiff. He's sort of a stiff guy. You know? He'll take other things, but not a free hat.
Of course, he has to insult people.
Right.
No, clinical psychology at its finest. Oh my gosh, I love that show. So, Trump is doing a great job. I wouldn't say he's been right about everything so far, but he's got a pretty good streak, and I have a feeling the leftist tears have only just begun. You know, we really owe the Democrats a lot of credit for how Trump is able to do these things so quickly. I mean, the Democrats were the ones who advocated for a stronger federal government, and this is what it looks like. So if there are any Democrats who are listening to this, thank you. I guess not all your ideas are bad after all. The Low Gray Show is a Low Gray Studios original podcast produced exclusively for Spotify. If you want to check out more of my stuff, you can do so by going to lowgraystudios.com. That's LOGRAY studios.com. There, you will have links to all of my other social media sites, so while you wait for me to make the next episode of this podcast, you can check out some of my other stuff. And as I say at the end of every episode, it might be a long time before you hear from me again on this show, because my schedule for this podcast is very erratic. So the next episode could come out in a month, maybe 2 months, I have no idea. So I'd recommend you hit the notification bell so you are notified as soon as I make the next episode. That is all for me. My name is Luke Garnett. Stay informed and always check your sources.